the session. We've got some time at the end of today's session for Q&A. And if people feel more comfortable having the Q&A not recorded, then we won't record that section of it. So don't worry. The important thing today is to give everyone a space where we all feel confident to share our insights and our knowledge as we move forward in addressing, like I say, these very challenging times. I guess to start us off, I'd just like to say from an ethical supply chain program, the challenges that our members are facing really are unprecedented. The current tariff policy of the US government is damaging for businesses of all sizes. And we kind of have a slightly unique role at the ethical supply chain program in the fact that we work with all parts of the supply chain. So that's really why we're bringing everyone together today to use this as a really opportunity, as an opportunity to show the real value of us working together and collaborating as a community. So the tariffs, as we know, are being applied universally, but China is absolutely the hardest hit, with a current tariff level of 145%, which is incredible and beyond any reasonable business's expectation to be able to manage. So, like I say, we're facing something that is unprecedented, I think, really, and also reflective of the fact as an industry, the majority of the industry still source from China. So we are all incredibly dependent on our relationships with China. And although we've seen supply chain diversification, and we will talk about that a bit more as we go through today's call, it is our country where where most of us do most of our business and are most reliant upon, and the area that has, or the country that has been singled out for incredibly high levels of tariffs at the moment. So a couple of things. We're recording the call, as I've said. We may stop recording it when we get to the discussion if people feel more comfortable with that. We are going to use some polls through this meeting. The polls, when you respond to them, are anonymous, so we won't know, you won't know who is responding and how they've answered, but it will give us better insights into what type of organization is in the call today, where you're sourcing from, what are your challenges. So we've done that via a poll than asking people just to shout out information, because we think people will feel more comfortable in that. So let's get started. If we can move to the next slide. So in terms of, we've got an hour scheduled for our time together today, and what we'll be running through during that time, welcome and introductions, which I've kind of just done, but I'll do a bit more of the team in a moment. The current situation as it is today, and I'm going to share some insights from the ethical supply chain program. We have colleagues all around the world, a very large team in mainland China, but also in other countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, obviously in the USA as well. So we're going to be sharing some insights from the team on from our learnings and interactions, both with the factory side and the buyer side, so supplier and buyer. We have scheduled an update from the Toy Association. Unfortunately, Greg Ahern and Catherine Bellevue, who are meant to be joining us, aren't able to join. But their absence, I hope, is a positive. And I wouldn't normally say that, but I think it's a positive because they are working tirelessly to advocate for a change in US policy that would be beneficial to us all. So the efforts of the Toy Association, led by Greg and Catherine, are really important. And that has meant that they have to be elsewhere at this particular time today. I completely understand their need to be elsewhere, and I'm sure we all wish them luck in the meetings ahead of them. They will come back to us very shortly with updates on their progress, and we may well convene a call next week for an update directly from them. So their apologies that they're not here, but I have got some comments to share with you when we get to that part of today's call. We'll then look at the support that the ethical supply chain program is actually providing both today, and we may consider providing in the future as if the tariff situation continues. And then we've got time for some discussion right at the end. In the Teams box in front of you, you will see at the top an icon for Q&A. As we go through the call, you are all currently muted. So if you have any questions, and please, I'd encourage you to really use this opportunity to share questions, to make comments, share insights. Use the Q&A button, and we'll see those questions come through, and we can answer them in the Q&A and the discussion section later. Or if we run out of time, then we can do that in follow-up when we share the notes from today's call. But like I say, everyone will be kept anonymous. This really is a safe space for you to share your concerns, your insights, and hopefully maybe some of your strategic thinking. So let's move on. So just by way of introduction, my name is Carmel Giblin. I'm the President and CEO at the Ethical Supply Chain Programme. It's my absolute privilege to lead this organisation and to serve you as a membership community in ensuring that the toy industry continues to thrive and that we provide the support that is essential for you to meet the challenges, whatever they may be, as they come forward. On the call today, I'm joined by a few colleagues. Todd Merton, the head of business development. Many of you will know Todd. He's dealt with many of you in terms of managing your interaction with the ethical supply chain program. So Todd will say a few words a little later on in today's call, particularly about the services and the support that we're giving to members to help them navigate through this challenging time, but also as they think about longer term strategies and maybe supply chain diversification and other ways that the ethical supply chain program can help. So Todd will cover that off. Like I say, unfortunately, we don't have Greg and Catherine here today, but I am encouraged by their absence and the purpose of their absence. So we'll hopefully hear more from them, which is positive in the coming days. Next slide. Also on the call, we do have, Johnny Kong, who is our Chief Operations Officer. Johnny is actually currently in Hong Kong and spends a lot of time in mainland China, interacting very regularly with our member community there. So Johnny will be on the call and can happily answer any questions or share any insights specifically if we need that detail from an on-the-ground perspective. So we now have up the first of our polls. Like I say, these are anonymous. So you simply click the answer that is relevant for you, and then at the bottom you'll see it's one of three. So once you've answered, if you click the arrow to go forward, it will present you the second question and the third question, and then we will have the immediate answers displayed. So if we can all just do that now. And I'm doing it too. And then press submit when you have done that. We will have the responses, and I think everyone should be able to see these responses as they come through. So we'll just give it a couple more minutes or a minute or so to just have everyone who can respond to do so now, and then I'll just share what we're seeing. Like I say, you just click the radial button that most reflects your type of organization, and then press submit, and then you will see the responses to all questions. About half of you have responded so far, so we'll give it another few seconds. So on the first question, I think we're pretty evenly split actually against small, medium and large type enterprises. And there's also a good representation of trade and membership associations and also micro organizations and startups. And I know for our smaller organizations, this a existential time for you, for many of you. So I'm really pleased that we've got such a broad, diverse group joining the call today. In terms of where you're headquartered, then by far and away the largest, or half of people who've responded, are in the USA. So great to have you guys here, and then quite a broad gathering again across the world, but definitely UK and USA very, very well represented. And then again, a bit of a mixture, but mostly from branded manufacturers, which is kind of what we would expect. So so great to have so many of you join the call today. Thank you. So we know who's on the call. So, and like I say, it's quite a diverse group. So that's great. That should make our conversations more meaningful to everyone, really. So if we can move to the next slide. Now, this won't be news for anyone, but I thought it worth just reminding everyone of the current situation on tariffs. So China, as we said at the very beginning, has the largest tariff that is actually effective now. So it's in place now, and that's of 145%. From when tariffs were first announced, we've seen them move, and I think that's been one of the biggest challenges for many in business, is the unpredictability and the concern that it's very difficult to plan and make business strategies and business decisions when policy can be changed at a government level very quickly and very dramatically. So China's current tariff is 145. There are universal tariffs. So everywhere in the world is currently facing a 10% tariff. But there are some countries that have a 90-day exemption. And I think that comes to end at the end of July, if I'm correct. So Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, India, Mexico. We've highlighted these countries because they are key sourcing countries, key areas of manufacture for many in our industry. So we've highlighted these, but obviously the tariffs are universal. So we have all of these countries with very high levels of tariff expected to be implemented soon. Electronics is really the only category that has been exempted, or certain parts of it have been exempted. For most other product categories, there are no exemptions at all unless they're covered in existing and ongoing trade agreements. So globally, everywhere is affected. If we look particularly at the toy industry and what we see at the Ethical Supply Chain Program, then China remains our single country of membership from a supplier, a factory perspective. But if we look at other countries of significant importance, then our second biggest country would be Vietnam. And Vietnam is facing currently a 46% tariff with the US. And then Indonesia, which is growing at an incredible rate in terms of new factory registrations within the Ethical Supply Chain Program, will be facing a 32% tariff. So these tariffs at this level are very high and they are universal. So just a reminder, but I'm sure you are very, very aware of these tariff levels all currently. If we move to the next slide. So just wanted to share some insights from what we're seeing on the ground from the Ethical Supply Chain Program. And actually the point of sharing some of these, hopefully, is to give you a little bit of confidence around some sentiment that I think is more positive in how the industry is responding to these tariffs. The first point is that we've seen actually no significant withdrawal from our program since the tariffs were first announced. And since, as we've known, tariffs were expected. President Trump talked during the election process and electioneering campaigns that tariffs would be implemented. So I don't think anyone was surprised, maybe by the levels of the tariffs we're being surprised, but what has been really encouraging is that we have seen no significant withdrawal or decline in our program numbers, which is really fantastic. In fact, in the first quarter of 2025, we had more new factory registrations than we would have seen in the last few years. So we're very encouraged by that, and very encouraged by the commitment of the factories who are providing products for many of you, that their commitment to maintaining labor standards, operation, standards, responsible sourcing operations, and labor protecting and respecting the rights of their workers is not being diminished, even though they too are facing, unbelievable challenges right at this time. Another indicator that I think is interesting is that we've seen no significant reduction in working hours yet. And why that's important to share is that it means production is ongoing and production is maintained. So again, the manufacturing side are operating currently as almost business as usual. From a factory, and speaking very much from a factory perspective, but I'm sure echoed by the buying community, we are hearing that there is hope of improvements and an agreement to be announced this month. Now, we have no concrete evidence or concrete sources to say this is definitely going to happen. But in conversations, we definitely feel, and people that we're talking to feel, that there is hope in the coming days and weeks that the situation could improve. That leads on to the next icon, which is to say that most would expect, particularly when we talk about China, most would expect tariffs to remain, but at a much lower rate, hopefully at around the 30%. Now, 30% is still a high tariff level, and I'm not saying that's a good level, but it is manageable, we believe, or we're told, versus 145% tariff level, which is completely unmanageable for businesses. So I think that the view is that people see tariffs continuing, but at a lower rate. We do know that many of our factory members are looking now at how they support their buyer members and hopefully have stock ready to ship as soon as orders are released. So they are taking on warehouse space, and that's a clear indication as well that production is being maintained. So I think from a buyer perspective, hopefully you can have confidence that your suppliers are maintaining their operations, maintaining their staff levels, and will be able to respond quickly when orders start to flow through again. We are also hearing that retailers who were maybe pausing on shipments, releasing shipments, are now approving shipments and orders to proceed. So hopefully that is some indication that there is reason to be hopeful in the future. I guess on a more negative note, there is an urgency, and I'm sure you feel it as much as we do here at the Ethical Supply Chain Programme. There is an absolute urgency for the tariff situation to improve, and to improve quickly. So cash flow will become an issue if tariffs are not reduced significantly in the next 2 to 3 months. And that 2 to 3 months is a figure or a timescale that's been shared with us by some of the most successful and larger factory members that we have in the program. So for smaller companies, that timescale is far shorter than that. They will be feeling the pain today and have been feeling it already. So I think the best case scenario is that well-financed, successful organizations at best case can probably manage the cash flow for 2 to 3 months. Beyond that, we really are into very serious situation. I'd also remind people, I guess, of 2 points. It's not easy or cheap to reduce your workforce in China. So if you are one of our factory members, it's not a simple thing to downsize your operations. And I think that's something that we all need to be mindful of. As much as nearshoring and opening a factory, for example, back in the USA is not an easy and an overnight solution or possible. So I think we all, because we work in supply chains, understand that responding by changing your location of supply is not something that you can do quickly. But also in China, as in many other countries, there are protections in place that mean it's not a simple procedure for a factory to lay off workers or reduce their terms of their labour contracts. And it's been really important and a very important fact that all workers in factories in our programme have labour contracts that need to be honoured. We are seeing some indications that there might be financial help available. I know, for example, in Hong Kong, there is the possibility that if a company's order is cancelled, that you can claim recompense from a scheme, I believe that the Hong Kong government are implementing. That said, there are requirements around that means that I think many companies won't pursue that as an option. So although there may be talk of some financial support, it may not be available or may not be attractive for actually companies to pursue that. So the financial distress that organizations will be in is probably not going to be alleviated by governments. We are seeing factory growth outside of China significantly. I would say that by the end of this year, we will see certified factory numbers in Indonesia double within the ethical supply chain program. So we're seeing significant growth, and Todd will talk a little bit about how we're responding to that by increasing our resources in countries and where we're available. But certainly Vietnam and Indonesia would be high on our members and members of the ethical supply chain community in terms of destinations that they're considering. Also, countries like Mexico and India. And we know that when the tariffs were first introduced, that factories were asked to cut their costs to help address this first level of tariff. I think those conversations have stopped now because the level of tariff is so significant that there is no possibility to address and maintain retail price points at the 145% level of tariff. But we know that factories have been asked to cut costs. And again, I think it's really important that we understand, mostly we're in low margin areas here. So it's not simple for organizations to cut costs when actually you have quite a lot of fixed costs that you're not able to quickly remove. We, and many of you will have seen this as well, it's publicly reported, but the first containers are now arriving into the USA. The first ships are arriving into the USA carrying product which is subject to 145% tariff from China. And I read actually only today, I think it was published by Licensing International, that Los Angeles port had reported a 20% decline in ships coming into the port or expected into the port in May. And with those ships coming in, a 50% drop off of imports from China. So what does that mean? It means that we're going to see product availability significantly reduced very quickly. And obviously, I think there's going to have to be retail price increases as well. So that's a little bit of what we're seeing from the ethical supply chain program right now. I think that does give some positive news as well, certainly from the factory perspective, that factories are still producing, they're still maintaining their worker numbers. They're looking at ways that they can be able to respond quickly to orders coming from their buyers as soon as there is positive news on tariffs. So that's what we're seeing from the ethical supply chain program. If we move to the next slide. And another quick poll. So if we can just get the poll up. So again, reminder, this is all anonymous, so we're not seeing any of your names as you reply to this, but there's just two questions in this one. So the first one, what percentage of your product range is currently made in China? I know tariffs are applied universally, but because of the scale of the China tariffs, we want to really focus on that. So if you could just answer whatever, less than 25%, less than 50%, more than 50%, more than 80%, or not actually applicable to you. Some of us on the call aren't sourcing, so you could answer that first question. And then in relation to China and this moment in time, we've got a couple of options, and we'd like to understand where you are currently. So are you continuing to ship and place orders? So are you releasing orders from your supplier partners, from your factories? Or are you requesting factories hold finished goods right now? Have you stopped taking orders from China? Have you put, and when we say have you stopped, is your intention to not return? So you've stopped, you're not sourcing from China and you're not intending to, or have you just paused orders from China right now, but you intend to source there once the situation is clearer, intend to restart orders and shipping soon, or again, not applicable to you? So just take a moment to look at that and answer what is most appropriate for you, and then submit. Wow. So that is very telling that nearly half of the people on today's call, or half the people who have responded to the poll so far, more than 80% of their products are currently sourced in China. So I think that is a real stark reminder, or stark demonstration of how important China is for us as an industry, and how damaging the current tariff level rate will be. And then what are you kind of intending to do? Are you continuing to ship, pausing, have stopped, etc.? Again, there's some on the call who that won't be applicable to. We're not perhaps in sourcing roles directly, but I think it's encouraging that, if I can do the maths really quickly, we've got 15% of respondents who say they are actually still shipping and placing orders today. So that's positive. We've also got companies who are requesting factories to hold finished goods, and that's positive. I think we all know that a lot of relationships or commercial agreements are based on freight on board. So if the situation of holding finished goods goes on for a long time, that will significantly impact the finances of their suppliers. So something to be caused, to be thought about. And then around 22% have paused orders from China, but certainly intend to start. So only 9% of people who've responded have stopped, I guess, doing business with China. So we are still, as an industry, and certainly reflective in this call, very, very reliant upon China. So thank you for sharing your responses on that. If we go to the next slide.
Excuse me 1 second, we're having a little difficulty here.
Great, thank you, Todd. The next slide is actually where I should be handing over to Greg and Catherine from the Toy Association. Sorry, can you just go back to that slide? 1 second, Todd. So as I say, Greg and Catherine send their apologies for today's call. There's a display box, Todd, that you might close, maybe. So there is, so both Catherine and Greg send their apologies, but I did have a phone conversation with Catherine. They are en route to some important meetings that will be happening over the next couple of days, and I'm sure you share the hope that they are successful in their endeavours. They have both committed and offered to come back and share more with us on a call next week, if that's helpful. So we'll certainly share an update and news from them as soon as we have it. And if we think a call will be useful, we will make that offer to you all to reschedule a very quick call to hear directly from them on any news that's coming from the White House. A couple of things they wanted me to share on their behalf, and I think we've all seen it. individual toy companies and the leaders in toy companies of all sizes are being very public about the negative impacts of tariffs. And the Toy Association has taken up the mantle very, very well, and very seriously to engage all levels of government and all possible avenues of influence to effect change in US tariff policy. I think they are working tirelessly, and they are constantly on back-to-back or Zoom meetings. So I think we're all very grateful to have the strong team at the US Toy Association doing this work. They've also led a global campaign of zero for zero tariffs. And that is hopefully going to see that implemented all around the world. So through their leadership, many of the national toy associations signed on to a letter drafted by the US Toy Association encouraging their individual governments and you know trade people to adopt this zero for zero tariff approach. And again, we hope they are successful in that, because one thing that we're all very clear on in the toy industry is toys are more than just a product. This is more than a commercial discussion. Um, Play is incredibly important and incredibly valuable for healthy childhood development. And it is detrimental and will be detrimental if there are tariffs placed on products that aid childhood development. So again, part of the work that the US team and other national toy associations are doing is really helping trade officials and leaders in governments understand the real value of play and understand its importance, and understand how important it is that we support quality production of safe goods for children to enjoy. So that's just a few words from the US Toy Association. Like I say, I know we will all come together to wish them success, and we will share an update on their progress and their meetings that they're holding in the next day or so with you as soon as we can. We move to the next slide, Todd. What I did want to share was just some ideas on strategies that we've picked up from some of the conversations that we're having. This really is just about sharing insights and advice that we've picked up from individual companies and what they're doing to address these challenges. I thought it useful to, or maybe depressing, to remind everyone that of the size of the challenge that our colleagues and you as individual business leaders and company owners may have in influencing a change in US tariff policy affecting toys, particularly. We know that this has now become quite a famous quote from President Trump, that maybe children will only have 2 dolls this year instead of 30, and maybe we'll have to spend a couple of bucks more. That is so undermining or so missing the point about the value of play for children, and also importantly the affordability of products that should be universally available. I think there is a real concern, and I was speaking with colleagues in Europe earlier today. There is a real concern that marketplaces will be flooded with cheaper products that are unsafe, and not meeting the quality guidelines and regulation that we should have, let alone the disregard for worker well-being in that process. So I think putting President Trump there was just to remind you that this is an uphill challenge to reinforce the value of toys, not so much as a commercial proposition, but something that really supports healthy childhood development. As I say, though, this slide really is just about sharing what we're hearing from many of our members in what they're doing to respond to the immediate concerns of tariffs, but also thinking longer term about their responsible sourcing and their sourcing activities. So firstly, and we've talked about this for quite some time now within our community, a diversification of manufacturing locations. That really got a bit more emphasis when we were dealing with COVID. So companies have been looking at that for some time, and we've certainly seen movement with growth, like I said earlier, in Vietnam, Indonesia, India, Mexico. So diversification is happening, but our poll today showed us that most of this community still sources the vast majority of its product from China. So diversification is important. It makes sense in any robust risk management strategy to have a diversified supply chain. But I think, we need to be realistic about where that is. And also, we need to do that responsibly. And it's not something that necessarily can be done quickly. So, but certainly, we would support that view that it's an effective risk management strategy to have a diversified supply chain. Also, leverage free trade agreements. We'll put some more information out about some of these elements, and I know for some of the smaller companies that we work with, it's really time consuming to get to the information that you need when you're trying to run a small business as well. So, but I'd certainly encourage people to look at where free trade agreements exist and their opportunity to do business under those agreements. There is definitely activities happening to optimize product classification. So we know that some product categories are exempted from tariffs. Now, that doesn't mean misclassifying your products, but I would seek expert advice on ensuring that you are optimizing your product classification to see if there is an opportunity for you to become tariff-free or your product to become tariff-free. Certainly advocate for exemptions. For those of you that are members of national associations, be it the US Toy Association, the British, French, etc., I'd encourage you to speak to your contacts at those associations and ask for how you can support and tools that they can provide you, perhaps to enable you to advocate, no matter your size, advocate effectively for exemptions for the toy category. Certainly look at implementing supply chain efficiencies. So is there ways to mix product in your container when you're shipping, etc. So look at how you can make efficiencies in your supply chain. Do look at developing domestic manufacturing capabilities. We're seeing the growth. Again, one of our markets that is growing in new factory certifications would be the USA. So I think look at the opportunities to develop domestic manufacturing capabilities. That also has the advantages of maybe supporting some of your environmental sustainable objectives and goals. So I would consider that. It won't be a quick fix, but certainly worth looking at. You will have to consider, or may have to consider, how you pass on costs ultimately to the consumer. I know those are difficult conversations, but every part of the supply chain is impacted by this. So I think they are open conversations that can be had and considered. And also explore duty drawback programs. Again, quite specialist, and we'll try and get more information out to our member community on the opportunities around that. But those are just some ways in which you might consider or elements that you could consider as you develop your supply chain and your sourcing strategy for the immediate and longer term. Todd, next slide. Okay, so this is our last poll, and then I will hand over to Todd, who will go through the next few slides. So just two questions again here. So will you or have you changed your sourcing locations in response to the tariffs? So again, if you could answer by pressing the radial button, the question that is the answer that is most relevant for you. And then on the second one, this is more about how can we or the associations support you as we move forward. So finding new suppliers, more tools to advocate for zero tariff on toys, more information about different assessment services. So looking at, beyond audit or pre-audit, what's available. Others we can, if you have other comments, then just tick that box and maybe we can pick them up in the discussion, or you can add the question into the Q&A button at the top of this panel. Or if it's not applicable to you, then please type that one as well. So enter your answer and then again submit, and we should see the responses displayed. Great. Okay. So of the people responded, we are saying there is probably, I can't do the maths quickly in my head, but 60, 70% who are looking at or have diversified their supply chain. And that probably leads me perfectly into handing over to Todd, who can take you through the next few slides.
Great. Thanks, Carmel. As Carmel mentioned, obviously the thing on everybody's mind is what can we do to diversify our supply chain, or what can we do to have less reliance on China? And we just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of what us here at the Ethical Supply Chain Program are able to offer. I know there's a common misconception at times that we're mainly focused just on China. However, we truly do have a global footprint of suppliers available to you through either our certification program or through our risk and impact assessments. Some regions obviously are more developed than others, but this continues to expand every day in the collaboration that we have with our own members, where we have the ability to go wherever you need us to. So if you identify a supplier somewhere in another country,
whoever on the poll.
Sorry, I think somebody's microphone is on. Anyways, yeah, so depending on where your needs are, if you do identify a factory in a region that perhaps is not in our program, we have the ability to bring them in, or to be able to go in and do the proper checks and balances on those factories to help you move along faster with that factory. So again, depending on what you're looking for, we are available to find the most suitable supplier for you in many regions all over the world. Obviously, some are more developed than others, but like I said, please feel free to reach out to us at any time if there are certain areas that you're looking to potentially enter into, and we can certainly give you the guidance necessary to take a look at what's available to you there. In terms of what we can offer for sourcing support, many of you on the call that are members of our program will be very aware of our Connect platform. Those that aren't members of our program that might not be. As Carmel mentioned, picking up and moving from one location to another is not a process that's easily done or easily done quickly. But there are things out there that can help you, such as our Connect platform. Since these tariffs have been announced, I've been on nonstop meetings with all of our existing members, as well as our any new members that have joined us, and they're all being able to utilize our Connect platforms, which allows you to quickly find a factory partner. Based on the region you might be looking for, or based on the product type you might be looking for. The benefit and where the efficiency comes in through our Connect platform is not only can you look for these factories, but we save you time in the due diligence and the vetting of those factories, because you're searching through our database of already certified factories, which means that we've done all the work to audit the factories, to remediate any of the non-compliances. In order for them to be certified in our program, they have to remediate 100% of all the non-compliances found, in that audit report. So by the time you find them and connect with them on the platform, that work is already done. So again, it helps to speed up the process, even though it can't be done overnight, but it allows you to focus on what's most important, is finding that supplier and getting right to business. How much and how quickly can you get it here? So there's a lot of benefits to our Connect platform to help you streamline that process of finding factories in other locations. And again, as Carmel mentioned, of all the members and companies that I've spoken to, there is a big push looking into Vietnam and Indonesia, which is growing rapidly. There's a lot of companies considering India or Mexico. which is fine. The issue there is that they're not as developed as far as the supply chain goes to service the toy industry. So there's a lot more work there that has to be done. With Vietnam and Indonesia, that work has already been done. They've been up and operating. We've got a great network there. So those are really the countries that most are really focusing on outside of China, at least initially. Again, those countries will continue to expand as we move on. But really, if you're looking for a wide range of suppliers, based on what product type you have, Vietnam and Indonesia are really the countries that most people are concentrating on. And again, through our platform, you can get on and log in. You can search for certified factories in Vietnam. You can search by product type if you're looking for plush, if you're looking for plastic, wood, whatever the product type is. Our platform allows you to filter that down so that you're only getting offered factories that meet your criteria. And then outside of the platform itself, because we do so much work with these factories on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, our factory teams located on the ground in China, in Vietnam, in Indonesia, they're very familiar with the factories and what their capabilities are. So if you've got a very unique product, for instance, that you can't drill down on the filters of the platform enough to really find exactly what you're looking for, or it pulls you a list of 100 factories, and again, you don't have the time to go through every factory to see which one's most appropriate. We have that local resource and that local knowledge base that, simply sending me an email or one of our team members an email with the type of product you're looking for, and we can then have our factory teams that are on the ground be able to either narrow that list down for you or find a supplier that they know would be capable of producing a very unique product like you have. And we do have updates coming as well. We're working on some updates to the Connect platform to make that conversation more of a two-way street, where you can be able to kind of post products that you're looking to get produced, and where the factories can reach out to you directly, and vice versa. The factories can look to post the type of products that they're capable of producing, again, to help make that search for you much quicker and much easier to find the supplier that's going to be your best fit. But again, like I said, there's no quick fix to get your products out of China into another country. But through our program and through our Connect platform, we can certainly make that portion of it much quicker in identifying the factories, rather than you having to go out and do it on your own through Alibaba or through third-party vendors. You can do it directly and have those connections made with the factory directly. You're not working through another third party. And just real quickly before I move on, I want to be conscious that I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions today, but we've also been involved with a group called Think Huge, which has found us working with a number of suppliers based in the Northern Triangle of Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, that have all expressed great interest of getting into the toy industry, and they're actively looking for companies who would be interested in at least engaging with them, having that conversation with them. The tariffs there right now are 10%. Those have not gone up, and they also have other incentives through existing trade agreements. So it is an option, again, depending on what type of product you're looking for. In some cases, it will be a longer range opportunity just because, they have not serviced the toy industry that much to date. So some of the finer detailing work and finishing work, they might not be as up to speed on. But if you're looking for more bulk type items that don't need as much finishing work, it could be much more of an immediate option. So again, feel free to reach out to me if you're interested in at least speaking to some of these factories, just to understand where they're at and how close they could be to helping you. They would be a great option, obviously, from as far as shipping time goes, being in country in a couple of days. So again, feel free to reach out if there's any questions, or you would like to be put in contact with any of these countries that have expressed interest in helping out the toy industry. And that's it. I'll hand this back over to Carmel for the next slide.
Great, thank you, Todd. So we are nearly at the end of today's session. Just a reminder, there is the Q&A. We will have a few minutes, hopefully, for some Q&A. There are some questions already that I can see coming through. So if you click on the Q&A button at the top of your screen, you'll be able to type a question. You can leave your name with that or make it anonymous. So please feel free to ask any questions. It's a great opportunity. Even if it's a question not directly for ESCP, if you have a question maybe for a retailer or a licensor or a factory, then ask the question and we'll get it answered for you. And when we share some insights from today's call via email afterwards, we can respond to all those questions. So please do use the opportunity to ask the questions today. I just wanted to take a moment to look at the what support we're giving to factories. There is actually very little that as an organization we can do to lobby or advocate for a change in tariff policy. And our colleagues at the US Toy Association, our colleagues in and leaders in businesses of all sizes are doing that work fantastically well. But what we are able to do is to support our member community in the best ways that we can. And for us, largely, that is also about, or very specifically, it's about supporting our factory members, your suppliers. So 2 bits here I just wanted to share really before we end. Our advice around supporting your suppliers, your factories, is help them by communicating. For many of them, they are in far away. They're in mainland China or in other countries, Indonesia, Vietnam. They need to have an understanding about how the current situation is impacting your business and is impacting your business decisions and your buying intention. So communicate with them. They can be resilient, but in order to be resilient, we all need to be informed. So communicate with them. They will be there to support you when you need orders. So help them by telling them what you're going through at the moment and try to be in this together. I would say, and I totally appreciate, cash flow is difficult for everyone at the moment. We are all feeling that. But please, I would make a plea not to delay payments to your factories unless there is absolutely no alternative, and communicate your intentions around this because payments are critical. The factories are facing higher costs and not necessarily orders to support their costs. So please try to be as open and communicative with your factories as possible. In terms of what we'll do at the Ethical Supply Chain Programme, then we learned some lessons during COVID, and we thought COVID was bad, but I have to say the tariff scenario, if it becomes prolonged, will be worse, absolutely, for our industry. So we're not yet at a stage of having to implement these or think about being in a crisis situation because, as I've said, I've been incredibly pleased and proud that the factories that we're working with have maintained their membership and are continuing to go through the renewal process if they're at the renewal process for them at this point in time. But if this situation is prolonged, our priority will be to support all our members in the supply chain. So both the buyer side and the factory side. And as we did in COVID, we may consider extending the valid period of a certification to help some of our members when they have no orders, but they are committed to staying in the program and committed to maintaining international labour standards. Before we make any decisions like that, we will consult with you all and keep you very informed of any decisions and any changes we make in the programme. But really, I wanted to assure you that we are open to making and being responsive and agile to make changes needed in order to support our membership. And also what we are doing, and we're doing this already, is support capability building in new sourcing countries. So we still and will maintain our support for all our existing members in mainland China. We will continue to offer the training opportunities, offer training events. We will continue to offer those both in conference style settings and in factory settings. We will continue to deliver our progress visits, which are hugely valuable to our factory members and build capability and help build resilience to their businesses through more effective risk management. But we are also increasing our team. So we now have resources on the ground, expert resources in Indonesia. We were expanding our support presence in India. So as you look at those new countries and you look to bring on new suppliers, there will be suppliers already in our program that are certified that you can go to quickly. And Todd talked about that in the sourcing work that we're doing, and how we're increasing the sourcing tools that we offer to our members so you can connect quickly with certified and high quality factories. But don't be put off working with a supplier who is not yet certified. We can support you all the way through that in building their capability so they do meet the standards that you need them to meet in the medium term. So we are building our capability and maintaining our commitment to support the global toy industry wherever you need us. So I think now we just move to the next slide, which is the discussion slide. I know there's some questions that have come through. So maybe if I go to those questions, and like I say, please, anyone, if you have a question, use that Q&A to put them through. So the first one I can see, and perhaps Todd, if you look at them as well, in case I'm missing any. The first one is, how do I access Connect platform? Connect is the platform that Todd introduced in his slide. It is it's available to any of our members. So, anyone can access it. In order to access it, you do need to be a member of the program. So if you contact Todd, and we've got both Todd and mine contact details here. If you contact either of us, then Todd will get you set up on that and as a program member. And just a shout out to any organizations who are on the line from the US Toy Association. There is a program in place with the US Toy Association if you're of a certain size to have automatic and free membership of the ethical supply chain program. So again, get in contact with Todd and he can get you set up on that quickly. Can you help train my new suppliers to improve? Yes, I just mentioned that actually. So yes, please, again, get in touch with myself or Todd, and we'll happily talk to you and understand what you need, what your suppliers may need, and how we can best support you. There is a range of trainings available, from quite in-depth in-factory training through to online free resources. So have a chat with us and let us know what it is you need, and we'll make sure we've got something for you there. Next one, regarding the earlier comment, factories are needing to cut costs due to tariff. To what extent should we be concerned about factories cutting costs by illegal, non-compliant cutting of wages? Okay, that's what we're here to do. We're here to ensure that that doesn't happen. We cannot have workers be exploited and be at the receiving end of the tariffs. So we have to maintain our vigilance, and I would encourage you all to encourage your suppliers and your factory members to stay in the program and stay compliant. They will be looking to cut costs, but they shouldn't be cutting costs by cutting wages. And that's our job, to provide you with the assurance and the transparency that you need. So we're here to do that. Someone wanted to make a point rather than a question. Everyone is having the toughest of times, including the fantastic factories in China, and the people who are sorry, let me just read the rest of this, who are such a key part of our sector and have been all my time in toys and long before. I just wanted those people, many of whom I don't know and many I do, to know we are thinking of you. We are in different ships, but all afloat on the same sea. That is fantastic. That's actually Roland. Thank you for that comment, Roland, from the British Toy and Hobby Association. I think absolutely you've hit it on the nail on the head there. We are all in this together, and we feel everyone's pain at this time, but hopefully together we can continue to communicate, continue to support each other, and we will come out the other end even stronger than before. And then a question from Serkan: what is your plan to I guess from the ethical supply chain program, maybe to increase our presence in Turkey? We're very happy to increase our presence in Turkey. And again, maybe if there's a particular requirement around that area you could get in touch with Todd or I directly, and we can take that offline. But we've certainly got auditing and support teams in place to support growth in Turkey if that is required by the industry. I think that is all our questions for now, and I think we are bang on time. So I'm delighted to have had so many of you join our call today. As and when we hear updates from the US Toy Association leadership, we will communicate them to you. They will clearly communicate them as well. We'll communicate them, and if we think it's valuable to have a quick call next week, we'll schedule that, and our team will let you know that one's available. But thank you all for your time today, and I wish you success and resilience as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.